Hello everyone, I just wanted to give a quick shout out and a huge thank you to my patrons, David McDonald, SDW Chef, Sarah, I'm so sorry if I pronounced this horribly wrong, Perry Fesselbon, Madison Bow, Skelly Bob Ross, Linda Burry, and to an anonymous patron as well. Thank you so much for supporting the channel, and well, now on to the video. Honestly, I think this could be a fun thing to look into. More movie-based video games. Oh, shoot. Alright, well, as you can see, for some odd reason, the glove has decided to call upon me and has changed me into the NES Jason, so I feel like I have been called to do a mission to basically follow through with finding movie-based video games. Okay, I'm not going to talk like this throughout the whole video. So, let's talk about another series, which is actually very, well, similar to Friday the 13th. As a matter of fact, there was a crossover with Friday the 13th. A Nightmare on Elm Street. A Nightmare on Elm Street, with everybody's favorite wisecracking ghoul who likes to kill children, Freddy Krueger. You see, there's a reason I root for Jason. Freddy's movies did have a little bit more quality put to them compared to the Friday the 13th franchise. Although it still is a really big franchise and loved by many, it did not reach the peak of pop culture compared to Friday the 13th. One odd thing about Freddy Krueger compared to Jason Voorhees is his ventures into video games are, oddly enough, not as big as Jason Voorhees, or oddly enough, not as wanted as Jason Voorhees. He has a few games, sure, but compared to the library of games with Jason Voorhees, and honestly, the ventures that Jason also has made, it's really odd that Freddy Krueger doesn't actually have, well, a modern video game. All of his video games are old. Well, I do have to say, the only thing I'm a little bit worried about playing, well, any of these Nightmare on Elm Street video games is, I don't want Freddy to actually get involved with this. I mean, clearly, the spirit of Jason has already taken a hold of me. So, I really don't want Freddy to get involved. So, I prepared by making a ton of coffee. So, after drinking a whole ton of this, hopefully we'll be able to go ahead and get through this video without any incidences from Freddy. So, this is a good time to go ahead and get started. These are the Nightmare on Elm Street. I fell asleep, didn't I? Oh well. Here are the Nightmare on Elm Street video games.
That's right. Time to play some good video games now.
This is gonna be fun, isn't it?
Darn right.
To start things off, we have A Nightmare on Elm Street, published by Monarch Software. It was released in 1989, and it was released on the Commodore 64 and the DOS. The game was heavily influenced by A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors. And the game involves you, playing as one of the characters from A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, exploring Freddy's house in the dream world as you are trying to save your friends from an ever-growing labyrinth within the house. You start the game off with trying to find Freddy's house while being chased by Giant Freddy. Why is there such a drastic difference between your character and Freddy Krueger? What is this? Anyways, eventually when you do find Freddy's house, you then have to explore it. You have to find keys, pull switches, and do a whole bunch of other puzzles while trying to save your friends from Freddy's grasp. And then, of course, at the end of the game, defeat Freddy Krueger himself to escape the nightmare. Now, firstly, A Nightmare on Elm Street is a vast improvement over Jason's ventures onto the home computer system. First of all, the game starts with the Nightmare on Elm Street theme. I mean, how cool is that? This honestly feels more like it was actually inspired by the movies compared to any of the games that Jason was in, minus the more recent game. Then to top it all off, you have characters from the movies, and that is another thing which actually makes this game, once again, much better compared to any of the Friday the 13th games, once again, minus the most recent one. However, that's the point. With a lot of these older games, you want them to really feel like you're playing the movie, and A Nightmare on Elm Street really nails that. You're going around a creepy house, you're collecting clues, and trying to find your way through this labyrinth, all while also being attacked by Freddy Krueger and trying to save your friends. This legitimately feels like the movie, and honestly, I really commend Monarch Software for really nailing that presentation. I honestly thought this game was going to be really bad, but as it turns out, it's pretty dang good. I mean, it's not groundbreaking or anything like that, but it's definitely a lot better than Friday the 13th on the Commodore 64, the ZX Spectrum, and so on and so forth. Like, that game was bad. Not only was it bad, it was honestly kind of dull. Like, this one is actually, an adventure. There's puzzles, there's things to do, and you get chased by Freddy once in a while and stuff like that. The other game was actually really, really dull, so I feel awful and honestly kind of dirty for praising A Nightmare on Elm Street over Friday the 13th, but oh well. I mean, hey, the game's fun. I guess that's what matters.
And you call yourself a Friday the 13th fan? You're enjoying my games far more than his, you sad, pathetic excuse of a fan of Friday the 13th.
Okay, Freddy, I get it.
Not as much as I'm going to get you.
Anyway, the next game that we're going to be taking a look into was published by the same people who did Friday the 13th on the NES. So, maybe this one will be a big pile of crap, just like the NES game. At least I hope so. I really don't want to praise Freddy any more than I have been. Next on our list is A Nightmare on Elm Street, which came out in 1990 and was published by who else? LJN. This game only came out for the Nintendo Entertainment System, and fun fact, this game was actually developed by Rare, the same company that made Donkey Kong Country, Banjo-Kazooie, Diddy Kong Racing, Killer Instinct, GoldenEye, incredibly amazing games. So, maybe this could be one of their good ones? As soon as the game turns on, we are greeted to this lovely image. Good old Freddy, here to greet us with a really enticingly fun game. Now, when we get to the main menu, we see that you have the ability to play with 4 players, which, for the time, was actually pretty cool if you had the correct adapter for the Nintendo system. You play as a generic teen as you explore the houses on Elm Street, as you are collecting the bones of Freddy Krueger, so that way you can dispose of them and destroy the cackling demon once and for all. You have 7 locations to explore within the game, some which are actually a little bit more unique, and most of them are just generic houses. As you're playing the game, you will encounter bats, flies, rats, snakes, and people in Frankenstein outfits. Odd. And of course, as you traverse Elm Street, you have to look out for them and not get hit. However, as you get hit, you will lose health and lose more of your sleep meter. And once you fall asleep, you go into the dream world, where all the enemies are now completely different and have stronger attacks and defense. And at the same time, if you continue on in the dream world, you will eventually meet I thank you for that announcement. Yes, eventually you will meet Freddy Krueger, who is introduced by his theme music, which is actually a little bit cool that you do actually get to hear his very famous theme within the game. Another thing that will happen with the enemies is their appearances will also change. Some of them will start looking Freddy-like Freddy's head with legs. What's with the generic spooky stuff in this game, especially something that's based off of Freddy flipping Krueger? However, you're not completely defenseless in the dream world. Just like the characters in Dream Warriors, you actually are able to find special abilities that will transform you into a completely different character. You can turn into a Shadow Warrior, an Acrobat, or a Necromancer. All characters have a projectile of some sort. However, a lot of the characters have different abilities when they jump. The Acrobat can jump high, the Shadow Warrior has a jump kick, and the Necromancer can hover. I personally think that the Necromancer is actually the worst out of all of them, other than the fact that the Necromancer can hover over some distances. So, yeah, honestly, this game is a lot of fun. It's, yeah, not great or anything, but it is good in execution. It actually feels like it's tied into the movie in some manner of speaking. You play as the kids, you have to fight against Freddy Krueger, blah, blah, you explore the houses, you go in and out of the dream world. There's a lot of really great elements to it, and it really lines up with the movies. It's very simple, but honestly, that's probably a good thing for the game. I will say this, though. This game is a pain in the ass. This game gets irritatingly difficult as you go on through the game and you defeat each of the different versions of Freddy in the houses. Oddly enough, what's not difficult are the encounters with Freddy, but all of the enemies that surround all the levels. Once you defeat Freddy several times, there are more and more enemies adding to the difficulty of the game. Normally, this is something I would never complain about. However, in this game, it can get a little bit ridiculous. Also, if you ever want to exit out of the dream world, you can find radios across the dream world. These things can get actually a little bit annoying. There are times when I am trying to just go along, and honestly, it is better to be in the dream world because you have the abilities to fight off all of these monsters. However, whenever you encounter a boombox, sometimes it is directly in the way and you will wind up falling on top of it, exiting out of the dream world, and basically being left powerless to fight Freddy at the end of the level. Both Nightmare and Friday have this ridiculous difficulty spike that as you're playing through the game, it is almost impossible to beat it without the Game Genie. And I will admit, as much as I really don't like to, I did use the Game Genie for the end of this game as well, and that's something I normally don't like to do. However, I do genuinely love this game. I actually think it's a much better game than Friday the 13th, because unlike Friday, this game feels like it has a purpose. There is a clear beginning and end goal for you. You go through the houses, you get the bones of Freddy, you defeat each Freddy, and then you just go on to the next house and you try to just keep going until you make it to the end, throw all the bones into the furnace, and defeat Freddy. Or do you? Freddy wouldn't have any more video games after this, however he did make several guest appearances, just like Jason. Freddy Krueger made a guest appearance in Mortal Kombat 9, very similar to Jason in Mortal Kombat X. Once again, very similar to Jason, Freddy's my favorite character to use in this game. Yes, some of it is the coolness of just using a slasher character amongst all these ninjas and other weird characters, but he is a lot of fun to use, he has a lot of fun attacks, and his finishers are honestly really cool movie references. Freddy would go on to make one more guest appearance in the game Dead by Daylight, which is a little bit similar to the modern Friday the 13th video game. You play either as a survivor or as a killer, and you basically just either have to survive and escape as the survivor, or you have to basically kill all the survivors as the killer and sacrifice them to this weird entity who basically is in the sky. Maybe it's Cthulhu. Gosh dang it! Why do we have two good Nightmare on Elm Street video games when we have, like, practically no good Friday the 13th games. I mean, don't get me wrong, those games are fine and I like playing them, but they don't have anywhere near the amount of quality that A Nightmare on Elm Street has. Like, these games are genuinely good. I mean, like I said, once again, not groundbreaking, but they are functional, they make sense, and there's an actual story and adventure to them. There's an actual point A and point B, whereas the other games, it's just like, okay, hey, play them. Hopefully you'll survive and get to the end. So, it's so frustrating that I have to praise 2 Nightmare on Elm Street games over the 4 that are Friday the 13th. I can't take this anymore. I have to go take a bath or something. Like, this is, oh my gosh, this is just absolutely ridiculous. Like, I feel incredibly dirty. I need to, this is just disgusting. Freddy. Hello everyone, thank you so much for watching the video. This has been honestly fun, finally getting into video game reviews. I've been having a blast just going through these, and I'm looking forward to being able to make even more video game reviews that are based off of movies. If you're new to the channel, make sure that you subscribe, hit the like button, and also make sure that you hit the bell so that way you will be notified whenever I release new videos or do my live streams. Also, you guys can look us up on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Last but not least, if you guys can, I would appreciate it if you could take a look into my Patreon. If you can't, I completely understand with how crazy things are right now. The most important thing is for you guys to be looking after yourselves, and on top of that, you know, just be safe. Just make sure that you're taking great care of yourself, not just hygiene-wise, but also mentally. Things are really crazy out there, and we need to really get through this, and I assure you we definitely will get through this. Once again, thank you so much for watching the video, and you guys take care and have a wonderful day.